Welcome to Voice Rising with Johnstad. Enjoy weekly conversations with leading luminaries, pioneering visionaries, singers, poets, musicians, and sound healers as we explore the profound role our voice plays on the path to self-realization and global enlightenment. The internationally acclaimed singer, composer, author, healer, recording artist, voice expert, creator of Voice Your Essence, and founder of the School of Voice, Johnstad uses her extraordinary spiritual gifts to empower others. Everything in this world vibrates. Everything has a frequency. A pioneer in the field of voice work and transformational songwriting. Her breakthrough methods are helping thousands of people worldwide fine-tune their body-mind-spirit system and unlock the energetic frequencies of limitless creativity, health, and abundance. Share your voice, ask your questions, join in the conversation. Receive life-changing, positive transformation and rise together to create a sound world. And here's your host, Johnstad.
Hi, everybody. Welcome today to a very special show. I have a guest with me in the studio, and he is beyond awesome. It is the best-selling author, poet, and teacher, Mark Nepo. Mark Nepo has a way with words that strengthen our soul. When he wrote his #1 New York Times bestseller, The Book of Awakening, he was rightfully lauded as one of the most influential writers in the modern spiritual community. Oprah Winfrey chose The Book of Awakening as one of her ultimate favorite things for her farewell season and chose Nepo as one of her super Soul 100 innovators and visionaries who are aligned on a mission to move humanity forward. Now, Mark is back with us today at Voice Rising with his newest release, The Book of Soul, 52 Paths to Living What Matters. Welcome, Mark. It is very good to have you here with me.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be with you again. So thank you so much.
So, Mark, we are in what I would call evolutionary times, and it's here where we're being asked, as you have said, for the power of love to move more quickly than the dis-ease or the disease. We're being asked to have light move as quickly as dark. In all your books, you write straight from the heart. You write with a commitment to transform the grist of life into golden nuggets of wisdom. We are needing this wisdom exactly at this moment. Can you share with us a little bit about where you are personally at this present moment in time?
Sure. Thank you so much. Sure. Well, I think it's a very powerful time, as you've already suggested. And I think one of the things that has surprised me, though it shouldn't have, is as we've started to enter the pandemic worldwide, I found emotionally, and I still do, that it echoes a lot of what I went through more than 30 years ago with my cancer journey and almost dying from a rare form of lymphoma. And I think that this is profound and one of the things that's, happening in my understanding. And, I remember all that time ago that when I went in to get diagnosed, I'm 69, so I was in my early 30s. And I went in one day to a doctor and he told me I had cancer. And, I was stunned and you must have the wrong file. It can't be me. And then when I went to leave, the door I had come through to keep that appointment was gone. There was no way back to the life I had before that moment.
Right.
And I've been struck by, I feel like this has happened to the human tribe in these last few months. The old world is gone. Mm-hmm. There is no going back. And of course, that engenders all kinds of a roller coaster of emotions and loss and grief. And I think there are good things that can come by moving forward, but there's still a lot of pain and loss and all kinds of things. And so I watch around me and in me, and I think that it makes me think of Kubler-Ross's stages of grief. And, if people don't remember, she was I mean, hospice has been going on forever before it was ever called hospice, but she was the modern mother of the modern hospice movement in the 70s. And by being with people and toward the end of life, and she witnessed and understood that there are these kind of movements when we are affected by grief that we go through, and they may not be all in sequence, and we may get stuck in some of these, or we may bounce around and repeat them, but I think there are pockets of our society who are experiencing this. I mean, globally, especially here in America. So, those basic movements were denial, anger, bartering, depression, and acceptance. Mm-hmm. And I certainly in myself bounced around in those things. I'm a lifelong teacher, and of course I'm not able to go anywhere. I'm learning how to teach online. But before that even became possible, I was very frightened that will I ever be able to do what I love again? Am I ever going to be able to be with people in a room and journey deeply in person? And more broadly, when we look at least especially here in America, we're suffering greatly more than other countries around the world because we have a huge part of our society that are stuck in denial. Yeah. No, I don't want to accept that the old world is gone. No. Let's party. Let's go to the beach. Let's make sure, that this is all. And of course, it's not true. And we have pockets of our society who are stuck in anger and where we're going to protest. Well, what are we exactly protesting? Biology? Gravity? The nature of the universe unfolding? My God, that's not. And until we move through these, hopefully we bounce around and we start the journey of acceptance, because until we accept that the old world is gone, we can't help each other venture into the unknown and start to live out what is ahead of us. And one other thing, and then I'll pause, is I also feel that, in the Jewish tradition, the word Sabbath literally means the one day we don't turn one thing into another. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have been forced into a global Sabbath for the incredible energy and craziness of the modern world, going from here to there, bending, manipulating, chasing, to life and dreams, and every feeling life is over there. No, it's over here. If I could just do this. No, we've been forced to stop. We've been forced to stop and behold the sanctity that is quietly under us and around us and in us all the time.
Yes.
All the time.
I agree. We are actually, I'm in Europe here, and we closed down in the beginning of March. And for the people that do follow the whole global tracking, Italy was then in February, and China, January. And you do sense that there is, something has shifted, something has changed, and everybody wants to go back to the old, but we can't. It's not possible. So the question is, how do we commence and come together? Mark, you created this wonderful new book, The Book of Soul. You actually wrote it in 4 sections. It's a course almost that we could take now. We could go and pick up the book. You wrote it in 4 sections that help us to move forward through this experiential life. And you've created questions in each of these chapters for us to ponder upon, for us to write in our journals, perhaps our reflections. And what I also thought was very beautiful was you not only write in your journal, but speak with a good friend, look at your beloved or come into conversations and a relationship that is deeper. And I really have to say thank you. I know that your Book of Awakening was daily practice, but actually with the pace of my life in the moment, it's in a very weird space of everything is sped up and at the same time everything has come to a still point. So I think it's a really lovely way to say this week I am going to look and explore this question. What were you trying to... I mean, when you wrote this book, you had no idea that we're going to go into a global pandemic.
No,
right?
no,
So,
of course not. No.
Right. So, what were you trying to explore? What was your journey
I think
as a writer?
and the timing that it's out now is beyond me.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I learn through exploring. Each book is an inquiry, and I discover as I go, as I retrieve and work with the different parts of the mystery of life, or the stream of life, and then the words are the trail of that inquiry. So it's not like let me share this. No, I'm not that smart, and I'm learning myself, and so I follow. And so with this book, it was interesting. I felt that I wanted to explore that how. And the last chapter of the book is called "The Temple is the World," and I wanted to explore how do we keep moving, even in my own life. We certainly have sacred spaces, sacred relationships. We have communities, whether it's a sangha, a temple, a mosque, a church, whatever it might be, that where we pause and we find that we're more together than alone. And that was a title of an earlier book of mine. But I keep being drawn that's any of those spaces are an apprenticeship for the walls to come down, because the temple is the world. Mm-hmm. It's not, it can be in a smaller enclosed space, but it's not a refuge. It's a conduit to grow and be that sanctity everywhere. And so this book was my attempt at saying and learning for myself, well, how do we get those walls to come down and live that sanctity everywhere? And so, this is the sections of the book, our walk in the world. How do we take that sanctity with us? How do we find it? And through that, the second section, part of the book, is called Our True Inheritance. We certainly can learn from others, but we also suffer the imposition of values from others. Mm-hmm. And so, the greatest teachers in any tradition are those who point us to our own wisdom, by which we discover our true inheritance and what we share through our direct spiritual experience of the mystery of life. And the third section of the book, is how do we widen our circle? And that I use a quote from Einstein, who really offered in this quote, saying, we all mistakenly see the things around closest to us as intimate, but the truth is everything is intimate. And our job is, how do we widen our circle of compassion so the family is the world? And, of course, the Native American tradition has that as an ethic. It's the Native American ethic and worldview of all my relations, which is saying, look, all of existence is family. The wind is your brother. The sea is your sister. It's not just the people you grew up with. And finally, after all that, what do we do? Well, we help each other stay awake, which is the fourth section of the book. We help each other stay awake. All of that and yes, beyond any planning on my part, those things for me, and I hope for readers, are even more relevant right now.
Yeah, it's very tricky. We're being asked to socially distance, and yet we need each other more than ever before. Right? So it's this balancing of how can I communicate, how can I share how can I stay in compassion and kindness and work in community while being respectful to that we are in the middle of a global pandemic, and at the same time, how can I reach out to people? How can I maybe write letters and love stories, and how can I stay connected in relationship to?
Yes, absolutely, and not there are the ways that we can do that through action, through becoming, through effort, through expression, and there are the ways we can do that by being completely who we are and tending our inner life. Because if we understand or imagine that the human family is a global body, then each soul is a cell in that body. And when we do authentic inner work, we become a healthy cell in that body. And just as with the physical body is considered healthy, as long as there's one more healthy cell than toxic, I'd like a lot more. And as long as we got one more, we're leaning toward health. And so even by tending our own inwardness and tending our own authentic inner journey, we are not only making ourselves whole, we are contributing to the global body and keeping the immune system of the global body more healthy, stronger.
That is very true and very beautiful. It's like resonance in music, right? We can tune ourselves, and through tuning ourselves, the collective becomes more harmonic, more in tune.
That's beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah. Mark, we're going to take a small station break and be back in a few moments.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM-FM.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi, this is David Strickle. I'm excited to share my brand new show, The Stream of David Live, right here on OMTimes Radio. Each week I'll have exciting guests and I'll channel the eternal wisdom of the stream, a group of non-physical entities whose teachings have transformed lives all over the world. So join us for an uplifting hour each Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's The Stream of David Live right here on OMTimes Radio.
With happy clients all over the world, Kara Johnstad knows that your voice is the missing link to more authenticity, abundance, creativity, and health. An internationally acclaimed voice expert, Kara's breakthrough methods have helped thousands of people successfully heal their voice wounds and extinguish the story of self-doubt and shyness forever. Join in group trainings, attend online sessions, schedule one-on-one time, and invite Kara to work with your organization and community. Get started today. Go to www.karajohnstad.com and receive a special guided meditation designed to fine-tune your inner voice and welcome you on the voice journey.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is Cara Johnstad. You are at Voice Rising, and with me in studio today is the best-selling author, poet, teacher, Mark Nepo. Mark, in the Book of Soul, you write that we experience a second birth, and we must be spiritually born. There's a time when we are literally awakened to this life that we've been given. Can you expand a little bit on this?
Sure. Yeah. So the whole metaphor there of a second birth gave me a way into this exploration of this book because, certainly we're all here by the grace and courage of our mothers physically who went through labor and carried us and brought us here. I remember my mother, who's now gone, but I remember when I was a freshman in college and I saw an actual documentary on childbirth, and in it I had no idea. I was 18. I had really no idea what mothers went through. And oh my God, I got out of that auditorium and I called her up and said, thank you. Oh my goodness. And so the second birth is, once we're here, we embark on a lifelong journey of experience. And that's the second labor, so that our soul can be birthed here on earth. And this is the journey that everyone who ever lives goes through, the archetypal journey, where we go through love and suffering, and we go through a journey where everything that is non-essential is worn or broken from us till all that is left is what's unbreakable and enduring. And no one likes this process. It's called being human. but we have no choice. And I think that the part of it that is suffering, and I would have never had this way of seeing it except for my own suffering and my cancer journey, but the part of the human journey that is suffering is like what erosion is for nature. Suffering is for humans, I think. And we are worn to our inner beauty. We save up money and we travel vast, when we could travel, hopefully again, vast distances to see amazing natural landscapes, whether it's the Grand Canyon or the cliffs of Mojar or, the cliffs off of Barbados on the north part of that Caribbean island, or, and they're breathtaking, but, we have no way of knowing. The cliffs are probably saying, are you kidding? Do you know what I've had to endure to be worn for centuries to reveal this inner beauty? And so I think that life is made, however we think it's come into being, whatever you want to call that larger order. I think life has been made just difficult enough that we need each other to ensure the journey of love. And so that's the chief paradox of being here, is no one can withstand the forces of life to arrive at that inner beauty but you or me. No one can live your life for you or feel what you have to feel or see what you see. And no one can make it alone. And
Exactly.
actually, I think, I'll just say one more thing, that actually there's another kind of ailment, psychological ailment, that is, if we believe we can make it alone, that's a sickness unto itself.
Yeah, because it is also codependent, right? Like you said, the waves are crashing against that cliff, and without the waves, there would be no gorgeous cliff. Without the ocean, there would be no rain. So without each other, there would be no books about all the beautiful love affairs in this world. Speak to us about, how does sharing our lives help us distribute the weight of suffering?
Well, because we can't do this alone, and this is the value, the healing value of voice, as you know so well, and expression, because the value of expression is that it does distribute the weight of what we're going through. And even when we're in difficult circumstances, to voice and admit the truth of our experience is powerful. And it releases and balances our experience with others. And this is why compassion is so important. Because when we receive that, we are sharing in that. It's like if someone is carrying a physical burden and you see them and you go, let me help. I'll help carry that. And then if two people carry it, it's not as heavy. Well, emotionally and spiritually, it's the same thing. You know, one of the great lessons, examples well, let me say this before I give that example. You know, for me in my cancer journey, it changed my entire understanding of creativity and expression because, you know, I was in my 30s and I was very much hoping that I, you know, devoted in a serious and hopefully noble way to try to be a great poet. And maybe if I worked hard enough and studied hard enough, maybe I would discover or come upon, write a couple of poems that would be great. And then all of a sudden, life turned me upside down and inside out. Forget great poems. I needed to discover and express true poems that would help me live. And now in my 60s, I want to be the poem. I want to be the poem. And so one of the examples I was going to mention for me that is so powerful is the example of Beethoven. Because Beethoven, to me, Beethoven, we all know Beethoven was this amazing, extraordinary genius of talent, conveyor, conduit of music that had never been heard on earth. Well, Beethoven also went deaf by the time he was 28. And so Beethoven, to me, was an extraordinary talent carried by an ordinary person. And that's what makes him heroic to me. And the value of expression distributing the weight. You know, Beethoven, and just imagine this. I mean, anyone listening, imagine that your gift is to hear and convey music that has never been heard on earth before, but you're not going to be able to hear it played. This was torturous. This was incredibly hard and depressing. And in 1802, Beethoven took a small retreat. This is what he told his brothers and his family. He lived in Vienna, and he went to a small town outside of Vienna, Heiligenstadt, where he was going to be on retreat. But secretly, he was really contemplating suicide. He couldn't bear it. He couldn't bear not hearing this music played in the world while it was pouring through him from the inner mysteries. And so he went there fully intending, it began what was a suicide note, but the power of expression, distributing that weight of suffering even within himself. By the time he got to the end of that note, he didn't say he was going to commit suicide. He wound up saying, so I guess I'm going to go back to Vienna and I'll make the most music I can with what I have for as long as I can. And he tucked that note in his pocket. He put it in his top desk drawer, never to be found until after his death by his brother, and proceeded to enter what is arguably a decade of channeling and scoring masterpieces. And that letter is now known as the Heiligenstadt Testament. This is so powerful, so powerful. And so one more kind of to tie that to a personal learning from when I was a little boy, which is a metaphor for this power of expression and giving voice. I remember being a little boy. I grew up on Long Island outside of New York City. I didn't have a lot of access to nature, but we had in those towns where I grew up, there was a block that had fencing around it, and they were water sources. They were called reservoirs, and they had grass and undeveloped. And so, you know, all the kids, we'd climb over the fence and it'd be our little park. And I remember being in there as a little boy, and I was so captivated. I saw this butterfly, and I wanted to see it more closely, and so I was trying to catch it. want to hurt it. I just wanted to and I very carefully, I did cup it in my hands, and I thought, oh my. And then my heart was pounding, and I stood there, and I was so happy. And then all of a sudden I started to realize, as long as I have it in my hands, I can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to let go. And as I opened my hands, these magnificent wings of color hovered and flew above me and away from me. And it was only years later, when I was in the hospital, that I remembered that. And fear is like the cupped butterfly. It pounds and makes a lot of noise and weight inside our chest until we let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Till we let it go. And then we feel the lightness by expressing the truth of our experience.
You talk a lot about the struggle to stay open, to stay vulnerable and perhaps strong at the same time. How does opening help us to live more fully? And is there also a time where we need to cocoon, if you're talking about butterflies, or need to contract and pull deep within? Is it hard sometimes to always be open?
Yes to all of it. So as I understand that, as I experience that, as I hold that, it is another paradox. And the way I've come to understand it is that we cannot, one of the rewards for being open, in the Tibetan tradition, in Tibetan mythology, that's believed that a spiritual warrior, and that is someone committed to a life of transformation, always has a crack in their heart, because that's how the mysteries get in. And it's interesting, I mentioned in the opening to the second section of the book on our true inheritance, that a spiritual warrior also is committed to the clearing of confusion within ourselves and between us, which requires us to stay open, because the word war, I discovered, goes back to an Indo-European word, which means to confuse and mix up. So a spiritual warrior remains devoted to the clearing of confusion. So if we want to help each other now in what we're going through, we can stay committed to the clearing of confusion, right where we live within ourselves and between us. Mm-hmm. But to go back to your question, so being open this way, we have to stay committed to being open. While being human, we always have to navigate the choices before us. So the way I understand this is, the sun is a great teacher in openness. The sun emanates light and warmth in all directions without preference. It doesn't say, well, today I'll just shine on the roses. That's what it is to be the sun. Well, our heart is our inner sun. Our heart is our inner sun. And we have to have a commitment to shine our love and care in all directions without preference. But yes, we do need, as human beings, in bodies, in time, moving around on the surface world of circumstance, we do open and close. As I'm speaking to you, my eyes are blinking, my lungs are expanding and contracting. I'm talking with my hands, though you can't see it, but my hands are opening and closing. But that is the opening and closing of the blinds, the windows, my windows to the world. That is not extinguishing the inner sun. And we often confuse these. I remember when I first experienced this, I was in a social setting, probably 20 years ago now, but I was in a social setting at a party, and there was a new person in the group, and turned out this person was very clever and sarcastic and like an emotional Zorro, and I was in the group, and my response to those situations is, I'm not playing, thank you very much, I'm backing up. Mm-hmm. But then I realized I wasn't shutting the blinds. I was vanishing. And for the first time, I realized it's very, very important to know the difference. So we have to always commit to the shining and emanation of our spirit through our heart like an inner sun, and not confuse the opening and closing of blinds because there's a storm outside.
Yeah, or
this
not
is a practice all unto itself. Yes.
Yeah. Not extinguish the flame. I was just thinking about that, right? So the sun is like a fire, a warmth, a beauty, but we can't extinguish it. We need to keep that warmth
because
going.
that's more dangerous to the soul than the nicks and cuts we will get by meeting the world.
Right. Yeah. So let's just take a break a few moments early so that we can let that sink in. How it is to just stay open-hearted in this world, and at the same time seek refuge if you need it for a short moment. Close those blinds.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
As I'm sure you know, it is time to celebrate self-discovery and personal growth. But you know, your efforts have to be consistent in order to stay balanced and to overcome depression and fears. So, what new books are available? How do you stay centered? Elizabeth Joyce and her guests will help you find out. That's Elizabeth Joyce on Let's Find Out, Mondays at 6 p.m. on OMTimes Radio.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
This is Kara Johnstad. I'm back in studio with Mark Nepo. Mark, the Book of the Soul, Chapter 17, you write, from the moment we are born, we begin to leave. From our first breath, we enter a lifelong conversation with presence and absence, awe and fear. And then there's a little, space in between. The prospect of wearing away and not living is alarming. We were just talking about this openness and this warmth of the heart, this tenderness. And at the same time, many of us feel that when we're so open and so vulnerable and so fragile, that we can also be deeply hurt. So can you talk to us a little bit about taking the risk to be tender and how this may lessen our fear and strengthen us?
Sure, thank you. Yes. So, being alive, the word suffer means to feel keenly. And we don't have to look at that very long to know that to feel beauty and joy, you have to feel keenly too. Mm-hmm. So it's understandable that from the beginning of time, we've always said, and you can find anonymous Assyrian texts where early poets have said, I don't want the things that hurt, thank you very much. I just want the joy and beauty. let's do that. And we can't. We can't, because it's the wholeness of life that is sustaining, renewing, is a resource, is the mystery that is empowering. And so, again, we have to help each other access all of the mysteries and energies of life. And the only way to do that I understand from my experience, is through the life of feeling, through our sensitivities. And I feel like the heart is a tuning fork for the sacred. And so if I don't want to feel and I stop using the tuning fork, I'm going to be isolated, and even I won't stop feeling, but I won't have any context within which to feel that will distribute that weight that we were talking about in the last segment. And so, as fragile as we can be when we're vulnerable and open, I actually believe that the heart is the strongest muscle we have, and there is strength in our vulnerability. There is strength. Now, again, as you were suggesting also, we have to know our own rhythms. We have to know when we need to pull back and be by ourselves. We have to know when it's bruising to be too available. But again, that's different from staying available to the universe versus being in a relationship that's too bruising, or a social setting that's too bruising. Even Jesus, as we know in his life story, when he was, overrun by lepers in the cave, he said, "Heal yourselves. Give me a break." I think that was the original Aramaic. Give me a break. He said, "Heal yourselves." Even Jesus needed time to pull back so that he could open up to the unending resources of life. And so we have to endure and endear. We have to endure the outer world so that we can receive the energies of life that will make life dear. To endure and endear. And so there is this paradox, that another one that I talk about paradox a lot because they've been my greatest teachers, where more than any moment where more than one thing is true. And this paradox we're kind of moving into here is that, at once I can feel when I'm fully alive that my heart will break in a second. And yet, when I am that alive and feeling, I am unbreakable. I am unbreakable. And so one of the things is that we are asked, I believe, to let all things are true. And we are asked to let everything in, to absorb and integrate until our heart releases a deeper logic of the spirit. And, in our modern world, we are trained at a very early age with our mind to be great problem solvers. And this is a great skill to have, to negotiate the world of circumstance. But to problem solve, what do? We sort, prioritize, and choose. This is helpful for me to know that I'm buying cottage cheese and not bleach to eat. This is helpful, right? To know various things. The outer world, there are answers. But in the inner world, there are no answers to questions. Questions are doorways that open up relationships. And so in the inner world, I have found that, yes, problem solving is not a philosophy of life or a code to live by. It's a skill. It's a tool in a toolbox. But I have found at every juncture in my life where I have been transformed or have grown, it's been because I have been asked to absorb and integrate, not sort, prioritize, and choose.
I love that so much about your work, Mark. I have so much respect for this way of being, because so many people come to me and they're struggling and thinking they have to set constant boundaries. And it's through my work also as a singer and a musician is integrate and absorb. I think it's such a holistic way of embracing the mystery that we live in. And I think that your work and this new book is just, it is so beautifully written because it's an invitation to say yes to all these different aspects of life, all these different nooks and crannies of who we are, and also sit there and say, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I was shy as a child and I'm not anymore. I don't know. And that's okay too. Again, the thorns and the rose and the jagged cliffs. You talk in the Book of Soul, you talk about 2 questions that we need to ask in order to find. And now I will ask you if you do know or if you do not know, but I will ask you. One, I thought it was such a beautiful question. The 2 questions are, what am I standing on? And what am I standing for? What am I standing on? And what am I standing for? And I had never really thought about what am I standing on. I've often thought about what am I standing for, but what am I standing on? I thought these were 2 really profoundly beautiful questions. Can you share with us a little bit why these are important?
Thank you. Well, I realized and explored for my own growth that before we can stand for something, we do need to know what we're standing on, and it's foundational. Often we, in our emotional turmoil, in our want to belong, in our want to have relationships and community, we go to each other to confirm our worth. When actually, to confirm our worth, to affirm our worth, we need to know what we're standing on. What makes a mountain magnificent is that it's coming out of the earth. You see a mountain from afar and it stands up, it's majestic, and as you get closer, you can't tell where the mountain stops and the earth begins. Mm-hmm. And so our authority of being, my sense of belonging, I want you to like me, I want you to respect me, but my authority of being comes from where I stand, which is on the authority of all being. The way the mountain is solid because it stands on the earth. And so before we can know what we stand for, which goes horizontally, we have to know vertically what we stand on. And so in this regard, so for me, I don't know, but I can guess or say that I stand, and I think ever since I almost died and I'm still here, I don't have any goals or 5-year plans or bucket list or I stand on the country of now. I stand on the, eternity is not, we've been miseducated to think of eternity as the sequence of year upon year, decades, centuries, builds like an endless tower. No, it's more like the ripple on a lake. When a drop of water goes into the lake and it ripples, or a drop of rain or a gem is dropped, every moment that is entered wholeheartedly and completely from what we stand on allows us to feel the essence of all time. Allows us, when I can feel, and now to contextualize that, so when I love you and you're suffering and I am with you, if I can feel your pain and keep you company, true company, and together we trip into the moment of anyone who ever held another in pain. Mm-hmm. And then we are, by thoroughly being ourselves, we are also supported by everything we're not. And that's why it's so important to feel. That's why it's so important to be fragile and vulnerable, to be like water, because water only breaks when it's frozen.
Ooh, that was good, Mark. That was a good one. Water only breaks. That was a nice one. That was beautiful. I mean, for those out there, this is radio, right? So I'm listening. I don't see your hands moving and your eyes blinking. I have very strong that image of water, and of course, water. We think that it's so soft, but it can break those cliffs down. It can wear it down. The erosion of water, it can suck us under. But water only breaks when it's frozen. And
water is also
so
a great
profound. Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
thank you. Water is also a great teacher in that water is clear and yet it reflects perfectly. Mm-hmm. And anything that it can give itself completely to anything that enters it without losing any of itself.
Mm-hmm. And it can also go and transition and transform itself into all these states of beingness and return to itself. Right?
Yes.
It can evaporate and it can be carried across the plains and the deserts and land on rose petals, and it can come out of faucets and go into our bodies and then go back out into the world. It's phenomenal. It's quite a journey.
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh.
It is.
My goodness. Mark, what is your hope for anyone engaging and working with your new book?
Well, my hope is that by taking time, not just to read through it, but taking time to be in conversation with it and your own life, which is why I encourage people to do a chapter a week over a year, that you will become more intimate with your own nature and your own gifts and your own wisdom. And that will not only help you, but that will help heal the world. And so, what I share are examples, not instructions. And so anything there hopefully will lead you to discover your own examples and your own situations and your own sense of what you stand on and what you stand for.
And help distribute the weight of the suffering.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you think we need most to heal the world at this time? Heal, to make whole, to integrate, to absorb.
I think that we need
with the paradox. Yeah.
I think right now, what we need is, while people are sheltered in place, to stay devoted to growing in place and to being completely, to have that inner sun not blocked. But we need a lot of inner suns emanating light and warmth, so that light can move faster than dark, that kindness and love can move faster than disease, that give can move faster than take. That's what we need, I think, right now.
And what did you say was the original source for war was confusion? So would it be the seeking of clarity in this moment?
A clearing of confusion. That a spiritual warrior today, I think, needs to be committed to the clearing of confusion within us and between us. Because that will allow us, as all the traditions say, to realize and remember, as in the Hindu tradition, that thou art that we are each other, and what happens to one happens to all. And right now, we're struggling because half of us in the human tribe understand that, and half of us are resisting it. This is all focused on, it's so paradoxical, that ironic that, this struggle about, no, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to, I don't want to help, because it's not, what we're helping each other. And paradoxically, while we're needing masks for healthcare workers, and while being asked to wear masks externally, we're being asked to drop all of our masks inwardly.
That's a paradox, right? That you were saying that you started this book to take down the walls, the temple of our world, to take down the walls. So it's this whole paradox. The moment of being sheltered, the walls are in place, the masks are on, and at the same time we're being asked to take down the walls. And at the same time we're being asked to wear a mask, just like the doctors are wearing masks. We do sometimes, at least in Europe, we managed this pandemic pretty well by finding that balance. We are wearing masks. Mark, the time is too short. We can dive even deeper. Thank you so much for being here at Voice Rising. I wish you much success.
You are welcome. Thank you so much. Good to be with you.
Bye-bye.